Welcome to Limitless. I am your host, Brittney Van Gestel. I am a high priestess and coach walking women back to their sacred sexuality and sacred wealth. This is the podcast where we are rewriting what it means to be a woman in service. And it's time to hang up the hustle culture, which is mastering quantum leaps, and create a life, business, money, and love that is deeply nourishing, supportive, and authentic. It's time to create your limitless life. Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome back to Limitless. I am your host, Brittney Van Gestel, and I'm so excited to be back with you. Now, this episode is dedicated to a full life update, and I have recorded another episode, so some of it may overlap a little bit. No, definitely some of it has overlapped, but I wasn't really planning on doing it this way around, so whatever. Watch the other one as it comes out. I think probably next week. We're just messy over here, and it's messy and it's magic and it's fucking perfect. But I really wanted to give you a full life update because 2024 has kicked me in the fucking ass. It has made my pussy shrivel. It has, if I had balls, they would have gone right up into me. And I just really wanted to discuss a few things. So we know, or maybe you don't know, depending on how long you've been here for. But at the start of the year, I was diagnosed with anemia and I had an internal bleed where I was basically just, I wasn't on death's door. I felt like I was on death's door. I was so lethargic. I had nothing in me to give. It was a really challenging time and my blood pressure was really low as well. So we were working towards blood infusions, iron infusions, and there was a period of time where I felt my energy come on up because obviously the blood and the iron did its thing. And I was like, oh my God, fuck yeah, I'm invincible. I'm on top of the world. But it really was coming in waves. This whole 6 months of 2024 has asked me to completely step back. And you know this, we've talked about it, especially if you've been listening to the podcast. I've been very, very, very transparent here. And I just have noticed that in this evolution of my trauma healing, of my body's healing as well, like the physical healing of illnesses and whatnot, God damn, it has been one of my biggest challenges. I thought I was definitely onto something, and I was. At the beginning of the year, I was on the carnivore protocol, and it did me wonders. It really silenced my food talk, my food noise. It de-bloated me beyond anything I ever thought possible. And it just shut off any cravings, which was amazing. However, I got to the stage where I wasn't seeing the full maximum results, I guess. And it was just really interesting because I was just like, can I still believe that it's happening even though there's no evidence, just like with everything that I do? But it was getting to the stage where I was like, something is not right. And the last few months completely defeated me, completely deflated me. The only thing I was working on was just literally waking up and doing my thing and supporting my clients. And in and amongst that, there was the podcast episode, The Sacred Death of a Priestess. I'm very transparent in how my mental health has been. But my mental health has been struggling so much this year. I've also shared on Instagram that there was a moment where I was having to contact a lifeline because it got so dire and it got so impulsive and it got so radioactive in my brain that I was like, what is going on? This is not me. And with the conversations I've had with my dad and trying to figure out, is this a family history of mental health issues? Because I did mention, I'm pretty sure in that episode, how bipolar, schizophrenia, and a few other mental health, quote unquote, issues is prominent in my family, and I've only just recently found that out. I'm like, oh my God, is everything changing for me? What is going on? And I felt like I've been throwing everything at it. I have remained active. I have remained not well balanced. Let's be fucking honest. I totally got really derailed and I fell off the bandwagon of everything. And I honestly gave up. I was eating so much junk food. Yeah, I really entered a massive depressive episode. And emotional eating is one of my vices. There's no doubt about that. And I've worked like quite hard on eradicating that, but that's okay. We've had to learn again, and that's all good. But in between March, the end of March, April and May, so April, May, and then I guess into June, so 3.5 months, I rapidly gained 9 kilos. But that gain of weight didn't make sense. Like, yes, I knew I was eating poorly, but it didn't actually, the math wasn't mathing, basically. Like, it wasn't a direct result of how much I was overeating, because that was not happening. And so all I was doing was just like, well, what's the point? And I was just gaining weight anyway. And then I was like, maybe it's my hormones, maybe it's my thyroid, maybe it's Hashimoto's disease, maybe it's all of these things. And so I've been going to the doctor, I've been having a lot of test results and all the things. And it has been a very testing time. And this whole time I'm just like handing it over to God. I'm like, this is my testimony. This is my testimony. It's all good. This is my testimony. And I have to just trust and fully surrender in that. And whilst that is true, there's also the reality of the unknown. I had no idea what was actually wrong with me, what was actually happening. And then it turns out, I just found out last week that I have mycotoxicity, which is mold toxicity from mold exposure. So for the period of time where I was living at my sister's, I was in her basement, which was converted into a studio, that I converted into a studio. And it's under, like, technically it's like embedded into the rock, and there's a big mountain, so the ventilation wasn't great. But I cleaned all of the mold. Like, I did a deep clean before I set up shop down there. But alas, turns out all of my inflammation and chronic illness is happening because of mold toxicity. And that was just such a eureka, euphoric moment for me, because I've literally been giving this everything. And you guys, if you've been around for a while, you know, like, I've been on some massive health journeys. Like, I lost 20 kilos. I regained my confidence in exercise and really reestablished my relationship with food. So this was a very triggering time for me, because health, body, weight, like all of the things, if you've been listening for a while, you know how this has been one of my greatest lessons in life, I suppose. And it was really, really freeing to find the answer as to why what is happening. And in and amongst all of that, it's provided a lot more answers to everything else that I was feeling. And whilst it doesn't take away or discredit what has happened over the last 6 months, it also is just like, okay, how come I manifested this? How come I brought this into my life? Because we are the creator of our reality. Like, I take accountability that this has happened. So it's just like, it's gotten me thinking that obviously I had to really take these last 6 months to be deeply inward, deeply internal. There's been no stone left unturned, relationship-wise, love-wise, trauma-wise, sexual trauma, my connection to my sex, my connection to my business, my connection to money. And it's like, okay, thank you, I guess. Thank you, I guess. Like, it has been so tough, but I understand why it's happened. And I think that that is just such a freeing perspective to take on, that it's just like, not why is this happening to me, it's happening for me, and it's happening through me, right? And that's the fucking cliche here. But that is part one of the big juicy update, where I haven't been showing up. I've been very minimal on socials, on my podcast, on email. Like, I've been in survivor mode. I've been having to do the bare minimum. There'll be days where my eyes are hanging out of my fucking head, and it's just like, I just have to honor me right now. And I think that that's what the beautiful gift of this period of time has been, is just like this deep honoring of me. Like, it just, I do come first so that I can then give back so infinitely, so deliciously, without taking from me. Because there was a part of me that's just like, why the fuck aren't you launching something? Why the fuck are you not putting out more one-on-ones? Why the fuck are you not re-signing in your mastermind? What are you doing? Like, there is so much conditioning around this time of rest that has I've had to come up against, because yeah, I've never been in a season of business where I'm not doing anything. Like nothing, nothing except for seeing to my platinum clients at the moment. Like that is the only thing that I do. And that's only 2 people. So it's been a very interesting time in my life where I've had to be with this. But it really brings me back to this 6 months has been deep rehab to my soul, deep rehab to my emotional intelligence, deep rehab to my energetic intelligence and to my physical body. And yes, okay, my physical body is still catching up to the rehab qualities, but now we have answers and we now know what the treatment plan is. But it just really brings me back to this understanding that there was a period of time where I tried to push myself out of this. I went to a retreat. I signed up to a mastermind because I was like desperate. I was desperate to feel something else than what I'm feeling right now. Like I was desperate to feel that eureka fucking moment. I was desperate to feel that elation, that clitoral stimulation of, oh my God, yes, I've arrived. I remember why I'm here. And it was needed. And I can see that was a lesson in itself as well. Like I had to go through that experience to pendulate back to what my truth is. And my truth is soul orgasmic empires, where we are being met in the frequency of where I'm at, as opposed to trying to push myself out of it, to give myself a clitoral stimulation where it's just like you have to get yourself there, you have to get yourself over the line, as opposed to how can I find pleasure in what's here? How can I deeply embrace what's actually present right now, as opposed to avoiding it by trying to bring more pleasure, heightened pleasure, overstimulation to then warrant results, right? And it was just so interesting because in that 4-month container, I kept on like hearing myself come back to these thoughts of, I need to create action. Otherwise, this is a waste of fucking time. Like I need to get results. Otherwise, what has this 4 months been for? I need to like put out my new mastermind. I need to do this. I need to do that. And all the while, I could hear myself and I could just like see what was happening, where it was just like there was 2 parts of my brain. The part of my brain that was deeply anchored in the feminine, like witnessing all this conditioning, be like, baby, come back. What the fuck are you doing? And also this deep need and conditioning to be like, fuck, I need to do the thing. I'm going to run out of money. I'm going to be in scarcity. No one's going to want me. Like, I'm going to be a fucking failure. My dad's going to hate me. My partner's not going to love me. I'm going to be a laughing stock with the family. Like, all of these things were coming up. And in it all, the true essence of it is that I had to walk this path to be able to unravel and rewrite what it means to be deeply anchored in my service, to be deeply anchored in this rehab, right? The rehabilitation of how I'm here to serve. And that's the thing that got me on that tangent in the first place. I knew that my body, my soul, my sex, my energy, and my emotional intelligence needed rehab. I knew it. I knew it from the bottom of my heart, which is why I've been working with so many people, because I knew that I had to slow down. I needed to go inward a bit more, working with my psychologist, working with my pre-cess channel, working with my somatic coach. Like all of that hasn't been based in business. Whereas the only thing I've really invested in over the last few years is definitely healers and coaches, but it was always for a business outcome. So I knew that I was in a season of rehab, and Hawaii came around and I was desperate to feel something else, because rehab is not sexy. Let's be fucking honest. You go to your physio, you're injured, and then they give you some exercises, they give you a bit of a massage, and you're like, fuck this, fuck my life, fuck your mom, this is not going to work, basically. And the truth is, the rehab happens not in just the session, the rehab happens outside of the session, just like with anything. But I was bored. I was like, no, just fucking get me there. I know that I'm made for more. I know that something needs to happen here. Fucking take me there. So what does she do? She goes to Hawaii. She gets into this mastermind, and literally all it did was like put me on my ass even further, because I tried to take myself out of the oven before I was actually cooked. I tried to get back in the arena before my injuries had actually healed over. And I think that this is just such a aha moment, a mirror effect to how so many of us are in business. And I've had to walk this to kind of help you guys guide yourselves away from that, because it doesn't have to be like that. And if I had known what I've known now when I first started my business, holy shit, I just know from the bottom of my soul how different it would be, how different my money would be, how different my relationship would be, how different the full expansion of my soul would be if I knew to rehab myself first, fully, wholly, so that I can be a testament of strength, even more, that's not shaky, that's not based on a version of a house of cards, it's not based on a version of having to prove myself, right? And that also just, it's just so interesting, because I knew I needed to really be in this for the last 6 months, because I had to create the medicine from this space, because so many women in business absolutely need these tools, absolutely need to go through this rehab of their souls, that need to go through this evolution of your codes, that need to go through this evolution of what you thought you were here to do, but actually pivot fully back onto your soul's purpose. Because here's the thing, we keep on trying to get ourselves to somewhere that is not fully in alignment, because if it was, it would have happened already. It would have happened already. Sorry. And I am sharing this again in the podcast that comes after this, but there is more to manifesting other than what you think you want, right? There's more to that. And I'm going to let that other podcast speak for it. So I just want to change up tune for a bit. I'm going to switch gears to even more of a juicy life update. And this is the juicy life update that I share in the next episode, that yes, you may have noticed that I'm not a single gal anymore, that things have changed in my love life. Very, 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 very dramatically, in a way that I really I never saw coming. And in the rehab of myself, I realized what the truth was around relationship and intimacy. And I do share this part in this next episode that comes, so just bear with me. You're going to listen to it probably twice. But I spent the last 6 out of 8 years of our relationship, of me and Aaron, running from the relationship and avoiding a lot more trauma, projecting a lot of my stuff onto him, and trying to evade it all by being able to receive the love, adoration, connection, passion, and purpose from my business. And within this relationship that I've had with Aaron, we've hurt each other a lot. We hurt each other a lot. And I hurt him, he hurt me. And basically it was a big trigger fest. And so when I finally decided to leave that relationship, because I didn't see any other option, there was no other option than leaving him, actually. And that was always the truth that I toyed with for many years, actually, that this is never going to be better than what it is right now. And so I have no other option but to leave. And then I finally got the courage to do it. And then the rehab happened. The rehab happened where I realized that in my needing to prove and be in the arena, I was running from one of the greatest gifts that this world has to offer me, which is love. And I was searching. This is a thing that I find so interesting. All I wanted was to be unconditionally loved, supported, and held. And when I look at it, I can see that Aaron was constantly wanting to give that to me. However, I never allowed it. I never allowed myself to actually receive his love. And I remember talking to one of my coaches. She asked me point blank, do you want to be with him? And I just went, nah, I don't. And I go, oh God, that's horrendous. And she goes, oh, because I remember saying like, but it just doesn't make sense because I love him so much, but I just don't want to be with him anymore. Like, I just don't know how this can actually happen. And the long and the short of it was, if you guys are willing to really work on your shit and work on your polarity, you'll probably find that your relationship would work. Whatever. Pop that in my back pocket, walk away, do whatever I needed to do. And I realized in this rehabbing how, and I've been talking it on the podcast as well, that my feminine energetics was just actually feminine masking. I was never deeply, fully embodied in my feminine. And I remember the day where I dropped into my feminine. I can't explain it. It was this felt experience in my entire being where I felt like I fully dropped. And I realized, what the fuck have I been doing? I was meeting Aaron in my masculine, hoping for him to put me in my feminine. But how is that going to work? Because I was essentially not trusting him. I never did. I never trusted my dad. I don't trust love. I just don't trust men. And then as soon as I've been deeply working and integrating and releasing my sexual traumas even deeper in a way that I never thought was possible, and coming into my expression and coming into my pleasure, I felt myself completely let go and come into my feminine. And one of the first things I thought was, holy shit, I've just let a good man go. I just let my good man go. And it's just really interesting because everything that I was trying to find and I was running away from to find, which was unconditional love, safety, being held, deeply supported, was literally right there for me the whole time. I just didn't allow it in because it wasn't the way I thought I needed it. And that's not for me just to take full, like, the whole reason why our relationship fucking failed all those years is because of me. We both would trigger each other so much. Like, I was emasculating him without even realizing I was emasculating him. And no wonder why we weren't thriving. No wonder why we were just coming with daggers, because all we were doing was triggering each other's childhood wounds. And then through this year of reestablishing this, I'm like, oh shit, I got it all wrong. And I shared this sentiment in the other episode, but I want to share it here as well, that in this era of personal development, New Age spirituality, there is such a high standard for love that if it isn't your fairy tale twin flame soulmate love, put it in the bin. And Thank You Next by Ariana Grande, like, we're so quick to move on, but what we're actually doing is just avoiding the truth that is actually there for us in relationship. And that has been a very sobering experience and very humbling at the same time, because I've had to really put my hand up and be like, fuck, like, kind of thought it was all you, but turns out a lot of it was me as well. And it's just so interesting because I feel like a lot of people have let go of their soulmates simply because you weren't able to communicate effectively. And that's what it actually was for us. I personally was never able to communicate effectively due to my previous traumas. And I thought I was doing better. I remember being like with one of my first boyfriends, and he ended up breaking up with me because he's like, well, you never fucking talk anyway. Because I didn't realize I was just in a freeze response for like 14 months or something. Whenever he wanted to talk or whenever we were having fun, I'd still be in a freeze response. So a freeze response has been inherent, like deeply woven into my entire being. And so I got better at communicating with Aaron. I got better because I went into my fight response. And that's what happens. A lot of the time we move from fawning and freezing and flight, and we pendulate, and I talk about pendulation in the next episode as well. We pendulate and we go into our fight. We find our fight response. And that's what I was in. I was in my fight response and in my freeze response. Well, no, I was more in my fight response and then my flight, like avoidance, deep avoidance. And it's just so interesting because a few years ago, I came up with the concept of, well, I'm not going to say I came up with it. I received the download of the concept of attachment styles with money years ago. Are you an anxious lover? Are you an avoidant lover? And it's just so interesting because here I am thinking I'd overcome all of that. That really, do you know what avoidance tendency is in lovership and in intimacy and relationship? Avoidant tendency in your business is #abundance, right? So it's just like, whatever, it's all good. Just like tap it, let's go. Like #abundance, woohoo. Like that's literally how we are putting a beautiful Tiffany blue bow around our own shit and giving it to someone else and being like, I hope you love it because this is fucking royalty, right? Like we have such a way of gaslighting ourselves into thinking that we are the king dingling, that we are dogs fucking bollocks, that we are the pussy that is here to absolutely bring men to their knees. Like our pussy does bring men to their needs. But there's so much more in that, and we need to actually take ownership of what it means to be a feminine woman who can actually receive love. And that's been my last 6 months, guys. So I've healed my sexual trauma. I've been very fucking sick. I've fallen back in love, and I'm with my soulmate, with one of my soulmates, because at the end of the day, we do have many soulmates, but I've come fully into the embodiment of my feminine. And within that process is the evolution of the true wisdom of business, of sacred service, of sacred wealth, of all of the things. And it's just so fascinating where like I technically had all of this for the last 6 years. I had it all. But it wasn't enough. I was still looking for the more. And now I had the exact same thing, and I've never felt so fucking rich. And it's just so interesting because a lot of the time we see that it's not as sexy as we wanted it, or it's not as bougie as we wanted it. And I love a bit of bouge, don't get me wrong. But it's just interesting because it's like, if you can't have this sensation and this feeling that I have at this moment, how the fuck was I expecting myself to feel anything else? All that is just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping one of them fucking stick, right? I was chasing my 7-figure business. I was chasing these quantum evolutions. I was chasing the idea of love, of unconditional love, support, celebration, and all of the things. And all the while, it was staring me right in the fucking face. And now that I've gone, boom, all right, have me here. Allow me to be here. It's no wonder that this is where the richness is, and everything else is amplified from that space. So, yeah. My loves, that is my big, fat, juicy update. I feel like I'm in the new year, finally. It has been a very long 6-month hiatus, if you can, that's what you'd like to call it. That's, I guess, what I've been calling it. But I feel that the new energy is here. I'm so ready to serve you all from this space. And I look forward to hearing how you resonated with this. So don't forget to please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if this is where you're watching or listening to this. Or better yet, if you're on podcasts or Spotify, leave me a 5-star review so that my podcast can begin to go out and change more people's lives for free and get people thinking about things in a different way for free. And we could just change the world together. So, my loves, I love you. And until next time, go be blessed. Go be abundant bitches.